Hello and welcome back to Inside Politics here on Universal TV, UTV Africa. My name is Maduka Ujimadu. Great to have you back. And of course, today we'll be taking a look at another topical issue on Nigeria's development, its politics and its policies. Well, we've done the first part of this conversation and we're back with the second part. We'll be looking at contract transparency, especially as it affects the host communities. And of course, we'll be looking at their benefits and rights that are going to accrue to these communities. We'll be talking with a lawyer this morning. But before we get to the nitty-gritty of the conversation, we'll be going for a break. And when we come back, we'll get down to business. Okay, welcome back. You're still on Inside Politics here on Universal TV, UTV Africa. And like I told you, today we'll be looking at contract transparency and, of course, with a special emphasis on the extractive industry, looking at the rights and the benefits of the host communities. Like I told you before, this will be the second part of our conversation. This time we'll be talking to a lawyer, and he's Barrister Olakunle Olabisi, who is the consultant to the Divine Era Development and Social Rights Initiative. He is also a youth and community advocate. Barrister Olabisi, good morning. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're looking at the extractive industry, beaming the satellite on it as far as contract transparency is concerned. From a lawyer's perspective, first and foremost, what is contract transparency? Let's start from there. Then we'll start looking at the emphasis on the extractive industry and the host communities.
In simple terms, make the contract open, make it an open deal, even down to the terms of the contracts. Should be clearly stated that this contract should be made open. So no legal barriers as to confidentiality that shuts off the eyes of the public from the contracts.
Simple and short. I like that. I was expecting too much lawyerly grammar and all that, but I think you've broken it down to a layman's understanding. But what are those laws and regulatory framework that cover the extractive industry in Nigeria? We have the PIA and so on. What other laws and regulatory statutes are there?
You're correct. You're correct.
Extractive industry.
So we have the Petroleum Industry Act, like you've mentioned,
PIA,
and that's for a basic. We also have the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, yes, 2015. So Section 2, Section 3, and Section 4 of the Freedom of Information Act gives access to any member of the public who requires information about contract entered into by public institution, between a public institution and another public institution, or between a public institution and any private organization. So Section 2 to 4 of the FOIA and grants access to anyone who wants information on even the terms, the content of those contracts, since they are public records. And then we also have the Nigerian Mineral Mining Act, although there's a lot of work to be done
on that particular
Mining
law.
Act, and I'm aware that the process of amendment of that act is ongoing.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, let's just hit it now. So many people have talked about the weaknesses of that Mining Act of 2007. Can you focus more on it? What are those aspects that you think probably, if they are amended, removed, or enhanced, probably would promote greater transparency in the extractive industry? The
provision on monitoring and evaluation is almost non-existent in the Nigerian Mining Act. And we also have the issue of what's it called now? Community Development Agreements.
Okay, CDA.
It's vague in Nigeria, if ever existent. So the Nigerian Mineral Mining Act is really old, 2007. So over time, there are a lot of development and initiatives and innovations that have occurred in the mining sector. And you also know that with the gradual phasing out of oil and gas, mining will become the new oil and gas soon.
In Nigeria?
So in Nigeria, globally, in fact.
Okay.
And you know, Nigeria also has a critical minerals, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the globe is really interested in our oil-rich, the soil-rich resources we have here in Nigeria. So there's a lot of exploration that will be going on in Nigeria in coming years. So that Mining Act is so insufficient to carry the load of work that is coming up. So community development agreement has to be strengthened in that act.
Okay. How do the Nigerian laws measure in terms of the global best practices and global regulatory frameworks? If you put Nigeria's laws and regulatory activities side by side, the international best practices and global regulatory standards, how do the Nigerian aspect measure up?
Well, Nigeria is not doing too bad. Implementation is the problem. Truly, we have work to do in the Nigerian Mineral Mining Act. But Nigeria is member to a lot of international conventions and covenants that strengthen mining, global best practices of mining, and the OECD principles in Nigeria. And Nigeria is signatory to these conventions. And even the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative has commended Nigeria for being very compliant with some of its regulations, although there's a lot of work to be done to comply with the best, emphasis on the best practices.
Okay, so looking at the host communities now, of course, the communities should be able to benefit from the exploitation of the minerals that fall within their own corner of the globe. The President Bola Tinubu administration has come up with this policy that any mining or extraction of any form of natural produce from Nigeria must not be exported raw and unprocessed, that some level of value addition has to happen before exportation from Nigeria. Do you think this has the ability to benefit the local communities? Because I don't see you extracting some mineral here and taking it elsewhere to process or add value to it. Is this a good policy for the benefit of the host communities?
Definitely it is. Job creation is one ready benefit you could pick up from it. And even looking beyond that, you are aware that just recently the federal government revoked more than 900 mining licenses. So the federal government has even gone beyond just value addition. Those mining licenses, exploration licenses, mining leases, and other licenses that have been dormant, for some years, they have to be revoked so that those who are proactive will take up the job and then go an extra mile in value addition before these are taken out of the country. So, yes, job creation is one of it. And, we begin to have some light industries in Nigeria that will give value across the value chain of value addition of these mineral resources. And, we have mining operators in Nigeria as well, but there are very few. The bulk of miners we have in Nigeria, artisanal and small-scale miners, but mining known as the ASM.
Okay.
And that's because we do not have value chain in our mining industry. But if the federal government's new policy is implemented to the full, again, implementation is usually the problem.
Yes.
But if it's implemented to the full, then we would believe that a lot of mining operators will be encouraged to, invest in the mining industry because it goes just beyond extraction, but also value addition to this. So there'll be a lot of work to do. And if there's an enabling environment, yes, we'll have a lot of mining companies in Nigeria.
Okay, so let's look at the rights of the host communities now. Generally, broadly speaking, putting all the laws, all the regulatory frameworks together, what are those rights that the host communities have as far as the extractive industry is concerned. If these mining activities are taking place in your community, what should be your expectation? What should be those rights that are enforceable for the community? Not just floating rights, but enforceable rights of the communities.
Thank you very much. So for the basics, you have the right to full disclosure of the terms of the contracts there. And, you know, in 2016, when the former President Muhammad Buhari, attended the anti-corruption conference in the United Kingdom, he stated Nigeria's commitment to adhere to the principle of open contracting data standard. And he stated in that conference that there will be full disclosure of contracts starting with the major projects in Nigeria. Even the NNPC short and medium term strategic plan also stated the same commitment. So there are a lot of framework that gives the right to the people to free access to information on the contract, and not just general information, but detailed information. Everything has to be opened up to them in terms of the terms of that contract they have reached with the mining companies, because their lands are being invaded, so they need to know to what extent these contracts have been, the terms of these contracts have been set. Going beyond that, the host community also has a right to enter into a community development agreement themselves with the mining company. And as you know, the community development agreement practice in Nigeria is still rather shabby, where you have the mining company entering into a very shabby or maybe oral agreement with the community leaders because they have promised to get them a car, just give them some good sum of money. Everything is okay. However, the policy on community development agreements in Nigerian mining industry has given rights to the community, not just to enter into an agreement as a whole, but in sections. What I mean in sections is the community has to enter into an agreement. The youth have to designate a representative who will insert terms, conditions, clauses that concerns the youth of the community in that community development agreement. The women also have to have a representative who, reflect their own interests in that community development agreement. And the Nigerian, the Federal Ministry of Mines Development, right? They have made it mandatory that if the community development agreement is coming to them for approval, the youth is not represented, women are not represented, then it is defective and it's null and void ab initio. So there must be signatures of these categories of persons mentioned, and it's a right.
So such agreements must be all-encompassing. All segments of society need to be covered by it.
All segments. It's a condition precedent.
Okay, so yes, we've now seen those rights, but how can communities enforce these rights? Especially to get guarantees of fair competition, environmental protection, and other social compensations, so that they also do not lose out, especially from the impact of this mining on their communities.
Yeah, so there are a lot of recourse.
Can they go to court, or are there some other processes open to them to get such redress and enforce such rights?
Definitely. The principle of ubi jus, ibi remedium applies. Where there is a right, there must be a remedy. Yes. So the question is, do they have a right to know? If yes, has a right been breached? If yes, definitely there's a remedy. And they can approach the courts. Yes, they can get a solicitor to enforce their rights on that matter.
So apparently there are no special bodies to mediate or intervene in this.
Well,
so probably the courts will be the recourse.
Definitely the courts will be the recourse. However, if they choose to explore other regulatory and dispute resolution mechanisms, they're free to do that, except where the law says it is a condition precedent. That before you get to court, you explore these processes, probably administrative, quasi-judicial bodies, and then they have to do that.
All right. We'll still continue the conversation, but now we'll have to go for a break, and we'll be back very soon. Don't touch your dial.
It's bold, it's real, is where women speak their truth.
My head of department, he was someone that everybody in College of Health Sciences will tell you that as I come up for this squad, they come back with gun for this man.
Was that bad?
Welcome to Ladies Lounge, the show where real African women talk about real issues, love, career, family, and everything in between. Every week, 3 incredible women share their stories, their laughter, and their honest takes on life.
I saw all of them as predators.
The height of it for me was my cousin. So is it possible to completely move on? I believe in karma a lot. Anyhow you do me, I have a solution for all your problems.
Join Blessing, Yvonne, and Tutu as they dive into conversations that are bold, heartfelt, and absolutely unfiltered. Catch Ladies Lounge only on UTV Africa. Ladies Lounge, bringing Africa's real stories to life.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Inside Politics here on Universal TV, UTV Africa. My name is Maduka Ujumada. I'm here with Barrister Olakunle Olabisi, and together we've been looking at the legal aspects of the extractive industry in Nigeria as it has to do with contract transparency. And he's been making sense of the issues for us. But right now, let's look at social and environmental impact. Most times people look at environmental impact, but sometimes people don't seem to realize that there's also some social impact. Like you see the injection of new activities, new people, and other activities into what ordinarily would have been a close-knit, small society. So let's look at the environmental and then, very importantly, the social impact of extractive activities within the host communities. What are these impacts, and what are the laws there to protect these communities from the negative effects of these environmental and social impacts?
Thank you very much. So 2 questions, environmental impact and social impact. Well, like you said, we all know the environmental impact of mining, disruption of the topography of the community, pollution, and lead poisoning and matters like that. However, even beyond that, you could also have displacement of people away from their communities, and that is where the corporate social responsibility, or the particularly speaking, the community development agreement comes in. Community development agreement is a strategy, a tool to cushion the effects of the environmental impact of mining in the host community. And that is why it is sacrosanct that even before the mining operation commences, a CDA, Community Development Agreement, must be reached. And then the Federal Mines officers and other officers of the Federal Ministry of Mines should monitor the implementation of the Community Development Agreement. So that's for the environmental impacts. With that in check, the community would be able to bear the impacts, the environmental impact of the mining. Moving to the social impact, which is even more concerning, there are a lot of issues around the social impact of mining in the community. Foremost is child labor, where in a community in Abakaliki a few years ago, yes, I think Oposi Umuhara, Oposi Umuhara community, and you need to see the children working in the mines and covered in stone dust with no PPE, no protective equipment, just inhaling stone dust. And it was during school hours, and then they have to work from morning till 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. And The highest paid is 500 naira per day.
Wow.
Which is about $0.4 or thereabouts. So that's one, child labor. And secondly, we have violation of women's rights. You understand? The women are forced by poverty to work for this company, and the company weaponize their poverty and exploit them to their elastic limits. You need to see, in that same community we went, you need to see pregnant women walking with the stone dust, inhaling them all day long. You also need to see septuagenarians, those in their 70s and 80s, women, elderly women, carrying heavy burden of crushed stones and crushed minerals in that community. So even beyond that, we also have issues of sexual molestation, harassment, and
even sexual exploitation.
Sexual exploitation, for real. You know, most of these mining companies have their miners housed in that community.
With those communities.
Yes, so they go after the young girls, they even go after the married women. I think Premium Times released an article detailing sexual exploitation in a community in Jos, a mining host community. It's a gory story, you know, a gory story. A woman was raped by 2 miners, you know, consistently, and she's a married woman, you know. So this sexual exploitation is a big problem, and it's unattended to because these women do not even know what their rights are. And that is why mining companies should have, as a condition precedent, a policy on gender. Yes, a policy on gender that must be restated and recited to each of the personnel there. Even a reporting system, you know, to checkmate any abuse of women's rights and abuse of child rights. So they should have a child policy as well. Talking about the regulatory laws governing the social impact, we have the Child Rights Act 2003, which has been domesticated in most states in Nigeria. We also have the Convention on the Right of Child. Talking about the exploitation of women's rights, we have the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, that is a CEDAW. You also have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, particularly Chapter 4 of the Constitution that details the rights of every citizen, irrespective of your gender. And what is even more concerning is that these women being exploited, because they constitute most of the artisanal miners that these mining companies, you know, recruit because of cheap labor. I mean, what is even more concerning is that whether these women are educated or not, they never get to the management level in the mining company. So at the management level,
there's like a glass ceiling. There's women can't go beyond.
You imagine that, and
probably use them at the most rudimentary levels, and that's it.
So we call that the doormat syndrome. They are just like the doormats. You use them, and they're just trash.
They're useful without any benefit.
Any benefit. That's how they view them. You understand? So even in 2019, NATI released a report that at the management level, all the mining companies in Nigeria combined, just less than 6.4% of the personnel at the management level are women. 6.4%, you can imagine.
That's actually very poor.
Yes. So if there is a social impact on women, and women constitute most of the artisanal miners, you know, women should be given a space in the management level so that there can be a representation of their interest there.
Okay, so because we'll be rounding off, I wish we had more time to talk about this, but what international best practices can Nigeria borrow from Africa, the rest of the world, in terms of what we can bring home to protect the host communities? What are those things that happen elsewhere in the world that are not happening in Nigeria? Probably we should be looking at borrowing from them so that the extractive industry would perform better for the communities, and then the host communities can benefit more and have their rights enforced and protected.
I think we have a lot of them, and we know them. The stakeholders know, the authorities know, the government knows. you can read plethora of articles, well-presented articles giving comparative analysis of the mining industry in Nigeria versus the mining industry in other parts of the world. So we really don't need to flog on these best practices. We just need to go right and implement them. There are articles, there are, literatures on all of these policies. But then, when we look at other mining countries in Nigeria, in the world, we talk of Canada. Canada is a mining country. And when you see the infusion of women into the mining industry, you find out that there's gender balance there. First of all, we need gender balance.
Gender balance.
Yes, in the mining industry in Nigeria. Secondly, the corporate social responsibility of the companies has to be sacrosanct, without which they cannot operate. So you don't allow them to operate first while you see how they comply with the community development agreement. No, they have to start demonstrating their commitment towards this agreement even before mining. And you talk of the issue of child labor. It has to go down to zero. And the Federal Ministry of Mines, Solid Mineral Development, has a lot of mechanisms, federal mines officers all over the country, but the problem is that one federal mine officer can be covering a large state as Niger State, which is even larger than some countries.
Yeah.
So they have to inject more personnel to monitor the operations of mining in the communities, the mining host communities. A lot of things to be done, a lot. We don't need to flog on them. We just need to get right into action. So with very good political will, and that can be achieved.
Okay, I would want us to end on a very positive note. I do not want to believe that in totality, all the stories from the extractive industry, especially in terms of the relationship with the host communities, is all bad news, all negative news. There must be some positive, some good examples that we can look at and say, okay, here's where the operatives in the extractive industry, the government and its agencies and the communities got it right. Do we have such positive outcomes, good news in Nigeria? Let's share them.
And so just a handful of them. We have some very vibrant mining companies or mining operators in Nigeria who comply with community development agreements. You go to Osun State, you find a handful of them.
Okay.
You also have many non-governmental organizations now speaking up for mining host communities, the women in the mining industry, and the children as well, vibrant. And the good news is that the government listens to them now. You find a lot of policies coming up for gender protection, for child protection within the mining sector. And the response of the government to the amendment of the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act is the work of non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations operating, speaking up, advocating within the mining industry. The government responded, and now they are amending the NMMA. So these are beautiful strides along the line, and we hope that the mining industry will become a beacon of hope, to the mining host communities, and the best thing that would have happened to them, especially now that energy transition, there is a sensitivity on the issue of just and equitable transition. So mining host communities are learning from the examples of Niger Delta, and now they are really responsive to just and equitable transition to mining. So there is a lot to be achieved within the mining sector, and we hope for better days in that sector.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Olabisi Olakunle, for your contributions today. They've been quite illuminating, and we do hope we can get you back for more on this conversation in the future.
It's a pleasure.
And that's where we call it a wrap on the program today. Don't forget, you can get more information when you go to our website, UTV Africa. But of course, come back same time here on UTV Africa for more on Inside Politics. My name is Maduka Ujimadu. Enjoy the rest of your day.